Shotgun formation for the Vikings. Chaffield's going to roll near side here. Picks up a block. Throws downfield. It's going to be short. It's going to be a jump. Oh, guard comes down with it. Touchdown, Mount Pleasant.
Live from our Seton Hill University studios, this is Westmoreland on the Gridiron on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Here's your host, Sean Myers.
We welcome you into another episode of Westmoreland on the Gridiron here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. I am Sean. That is Dan. I never know if I'm pointing correctly. Yeah.
I know. I point this way, and it looks to me like I'm pointing at you, but I think I'm pointing the opposite. So I don't know. I'll point at myself.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That is Dan. I'm Sean. You know who we are at this point. You know where to find us. Wednesday at 7 on the Westmoreland Sports Network. And enough of our introductions. Let's introduce this big show that we have ahead of us tonight, Flick. We will run down all of the scores from Week 5 of the WPIAL high school football season. Many teams starting their section play this past week. We will also have the top performers from Week 5, a jam-packed Plays of the Week, maybe the biggest version we've ever had of Plays of the Week, so stick around for that, as well as a couple of great interviews. Hempfield area head coach Nick Keefer and Carson Heinle of Kiski area, our Player of the Week, and a look at the Week 6 ledger as well. But Flick, a lot to get to. This was a really fun week. As we mentioned, some teams open conference play, in particular the Class 3A Interstate that has 5 Westmoreland County teams. It was a lot of good Westmoreland versus Westmoreland matchups, and chief amongst them, Mount Pleasant edging York in the final minute. Maybe not two teams that will be playing for a championship when it's all said and done, but this is a significant win for the Vikings. And certainly you feel like ultimately could come down to determining if one of these teams potentially gets into the playoffs. You might look back at this one. But the highs and lows of this game were just incredible. And I know we're going to touch a lot on some of the great plays from this game as well.
Yeah, I mean, we'll do that in a second. But back and forth, ebbs and flows. The momentum changes in this game. It was a great high school football game between two teams with not much distance between one another. It's exactly what you want to see on a Friday night, especially for a conference opener too, Sean. We talked many times about how interesting and intriguing the Interstate Conference will be this year. And I think we saw a glimpse of that on Friday night with these two teams. And Mount Pleasant continues to have that knack for playing. I think this is the third 1-point game that they have played in this season. I guess they're 2-1. In those games, pretty crazy. But the one thing that stands out to me was their game-winning drive. Went 15 plays, 73 yards. 13 of the 15 plays were runs. And how about Stephen Pradina again having a knack for scoring the game-winning touchdown, got the big score. And then they got the 2-point conversion. And because someone spiked the ball in the end zone, York actually got the ball at the 40, but could not complete the any kind of pass or big play, to go ahead. But incredibly exciting game and a really gutsy performance too by Radon Kuroda. He had 33 pass attempts and 24 rush attempts. So 57 plays total. He was either running or throwing the football, which was crazy. Sarver had a big game for them, 96 yards on 7 catches. But one of the big things for York, they did have some drop passes and some penalties that held them back. But just a great game. And again, Kuroda, I mean, is there anyone that means more to his team than Radon Kuroda? I don't know if that player exists in the WPIAL. I mean, it is all him for sure. And he played really well. Unfortunately for York, though, they came up just short.
Yeah, I was going to mention he just had an incredible effort. And I know they got off to the good start this season, winning their first 2 for the first time in a decade or so. They haven't won since, but it's certainly not due to his failures or shortcomings. He was spectacular in this game. And by the way, we mentioned the back and forth of Mount Pleasant scoring that touchdown in the final minute and the long drive. And you're right, Pradina does have a knack for the big plays. I believe the one narrow loss they had, he was actually denied maybe at the 1-yard line on the final play. So it always seems like when the game is on the line in the final seconds or in overtime, he's the guy that gets the football. Prior to that incredible drive, the Cougars had their own drive to go ahead, albeit briefly. So it wasn't as though just Mount Pleasant made the plays late. The Cougars did offensively as well. Terrific game, ultimately a 22-19 win for the Vikings. And again, they are now 1-0 in the interstate. So, yeah, the previous games matter, but these now really matter for the postseason. And the Cougars dropped to 0-1 in interstate conference play. And by the way, there was a spectacular play in this game that you're going to have to stick around for if you haven't watched TV over the past few days. Well, how about in that same conference? Anthony Smith has done something just so incredible for Southmoreland. We heard about him before the season, Flick, and sometimes we hear players get hyped up before we actually see them that season. I would say so far he has lived up to the expectations. This ninth grader at Southmoreland has a near 300-yard passing game and leading them to a 31-14 win over Derry area. That also was the conference opener for those squads in the interstate. Now, we should note the Trojans missed some pretty significant players, but that's to take nothing away from the explosive Southmoreland offense. I think they can ride this offense quite a way.
Yeah, the game was very much, Sean, up for grabs late in the second quarter, and Southmoreland, you mentioned, just exploded thanks to Anthony Smith and you know, the great, 3 touchdowns in just a couple of minutes. And all of a sudden, Southmoreland had a commanding lead at halftime. And, you know, it's not only Anthony. Their receivers, that Elliot Primus kid, he's pretty good. He really showed out. Jackson Mickens as well. You know, it's not as if he's necessarily throwing the ball 30, 40 yards downfield every play. Sometimes he throws it short, and those guys just take off and are able to make players miss, and they get the proper blocking that they can go for touchdowns. So I think it's the passing game as a whole. But to see a freshman coming in doing what he's doing, calm, cool, and collected, you know, a big conference opener is really, really impressive. I will say, Derry, whenever they would get some pressure on him, obviously he didn't look quite as good, just like any quarterback, you know, would. You know, not doesn't matter if you're a freshman, sophomore, or a senior. They were able to get an interception against him when Southmoreland was backed up to, I think it was like their own inch line, basically, threw the ball kind of up for grabs from the end zone. Derry got an interception, ended up turning that into a touchdown that tied the game at 7-7 at that point. But still, I mean, he was just super impressive. And just, again, the receivers as a whole, very, very impressive for Southmoreland. I'll say this for Derry, though. I thought they played really tough. They really did hang around in the game after Southmoreland went up 28-7. They made it 28-14. They had some opportunities, and they were playing without, as you mentioned, their top offensive player in Damari Robinson, who, by the way, you're going up against Anthony Smith. He's also a good player in the secondary, too, on defense. So you're without a two-way starter that really could have helped you. Brady Brown is still out for Derry. He's probably their best defensive player, and he also plays a little bit of offense. So they were playing without, you know, again, their best offensive, best defensive player, and I still thought they hung around and played tough, and it's going to be interesting to see how they fare. It's going to be tough against Elizabeth Forward, certainly this week, but, you know, against some of the other teams in this conference. So, again, I was impressed with how Derry, you know, Anthony Sacco was able to hit some big passes in the game. Not very big kid, but he has a pretty strong arm, and I think that's going to play down the road. He's only a sophomore for Derry, so that was certainly encouraging to see. But good crowd on hand, another one of those Westmoreland County games, and really impressed certainly from you know, from seeing Anthony Smith up close.
Yeah, and you mentioned how his receivers do a lot as well. And I know Primus, I saw a couple of his plays where they throw it basically to the line of scrimmage, and then he was able to make a couple guys miss. He is a big body. I mean, he looks more like a tight end than a wide receiver. He's got a little bit of that Ty Keefer type build, you know, big, long basketball player. But I did see one of the touchdowns. It might have been to Mickens, where Smith did throw a really nice deep pass. So he's got a terrific arm. That offense is absolutely rolling, and they can play some defense as well. Of course, Ethan Shawley is great on that side of the ball. He made a big play on fourth down that kind of swung the momentum in favor of the Scotties. So that's a big win for them. And don't look now, they're 5-1. Yes, they're only 1-0 in the conference, but they have certainly taken care of business. Their lone loss was to a 4A school in Blackhawk.
And I think Tim Bukowski would tell you that they still need to clean some things up. You know, from their vantage point, they kind of let Derry hang around a little bit. They fumbled a punt. They had penalties. So those are still some things to work on, but it's nice to work on those things when, you know, you come out of the game with a 31-14 win.
They are 5-1, as is the Franklin Regional Panthers. They had to earn this one, though, as they kind of overcame a really ugly start to win 35-30 at home against Kiski area. The Cavaliers are now just 1-5, but they've been competitive in most of their games. Just a disastrous start to the game for Franklin Regional. They were down 17-0. I thought this is a major upset brewing. And we kind of had the feeling Kiski might upset one of the teams in the Big East eventually. It looked like they were going to do that. It didn't happen. The Panthers came roaring back. No surprise who led the way offensively. Kyle Dupill, who has been, probably the most steady running back in all of Westmoreland County and maybe the entire WPIAL this season. He was great. Once again, they got some explosive plays that helped get momentum back on their side. This was a much-needed win for the Panthers. They have a legitimate shot to win the conference title, but had they slipped up in a game like this one where they were kind of supposed to win, that could have derailed them. So give them a lot of credit for overcoming really probably about 20 minutes of gameplay to start this one.
And I said on the show last week and probably previous weeks as well, I thought Kiski and or Armstrong could come up and pull off an upset. I really think this conference is so competitive that it could happen. And it really, if you're Kiski, you probably feel that it should have happened. You're up 17-0. And the one encouraging thing had to be, the defense. They were able to start the game with a 3-and-out, and they were able to force 2 turnovers right off the bat. They give the ball to the offense, and Carson Heinle's cooking, and Kusik, and all of a sudden it's 17-0, and you think, holy cow, like Kiski is gonna, pull the upset maybe by, a couple of scores. But I thought the biggest play in the game was Chase Lemke hit Elijah Bennett on an 80-yard touchdown pass, and that swung the momentum right back into Franklin Regional's favor. Sean, if you're the favorite coming into a game and you're down, if you hit a big play, it kind of calms everything down, and you say, okay, we're right back in the game. Let's play Franklin Regional football. So you had the Bennett touchdown catch. Mac Bresnahan then pulls in a 23-yard touchdown. Chase Lemke was really good in this game. I don't know that he gets enough credit for what he does for Franklin Regional just because Kyle Dupill is such a workhorse. But that made it a 17-14 game at halftime. So Franklin went into halftime with all sorts of momentum, and then they were able to win the game in the second half. Another big play in the game, Franklin was up 28-23, and they were at their own 10-yard line. If they punt the ball there, Kiski area obviously has great field position to try to take the lead. But what happens? Kyle Dupill rips off a 80-yard run, and then they cap it off with a Lemke 2-yard touchdown. So that was a massive play in the game as well. But I got to give it up to our player of the week, Carson Heinle, threw for 209 yards and also passed Josh Vick. I don't think any relation to Michael or Marcus, but the most passing yards in Kiski area history. So congratulations to Carson. I'll be talking to him about that. Great to see, Kiski again being so competitive this year. They just can't seem to be, I guess, consistent enough maybe on both sides of the ball, specifically on defense, to get things done. Great start defensively for Kiski, but they just couldn't cap it off.
Yeah, again, what they're trying to do was slow down Kyle Dupill, and no one really other than Upper St. Clair has been able to do that. To your point, though, Lemke was so instrumental because if they had stayed down 17, 14 points, I don't know that the Panthers would have been able to lean as heavily on Dupill. They had to kind of get some bigger splash plays through the air. Once they did that and got back, close to even, or then once they took the lead, they could sort of go back to shifting their strategy to keeping it on the ground. So Chase Lemke was absolutely crucial in that comeback win. A big one for the Panthers. They stay undefeated in Big East Conference play. They are now 5-1. We mentioned the Cavaliers are now just 1-5. Well, Hempfield area got its first win in conference play, and Flick, this had to be one of the wildest games of the entire season.
How many wild games were there over the weekend, though? Holy cow.
A lot of them, my friend. A lot of them. But this one takes the cake, I think. And, of course, we're going to hear from their head man, Nick Keefer, in just a little bit. They win in overtime against Cannon McMillan. The fact that this got to overtime is almost unbelievable. They won 33-27 against the Big Macs, which Cannon Mac, I think, it's clear they took a step back from a year ago, but they were still one of the teams that people were saying, they're going to be in the playoff conversation. They'll probably be a postseason team. Maybe they will, but for the Spartans to get this win on the road, now all of a sudden, Hempfield area is squarely in the mix of the playoffs because, 4 teams get in. We know Central Catholic and North Allegheny are going to be 2 of those. That means you have the Norwins, the Cannon McMillans, the Hempfield areas and the Mount Lebanons all kind of jockeying for that spot. So I think that they've got a very legitimate chance now. And the way that they won this one, where Cannon Mac had a play that seemingly ended the game, and in celebration, they dropped the ball in the end zone. It was not a dead ball. Jack Kopis picks it up. Spartans get the touchdown. And then once they get to overtime, their defense came up big late. Aiden Steinbeiser was incredible in this game. He has become kind of the go-to guy on the ground and even catching the ball. And then Dom Dietrich doing what he's been able to do all season since he's been healthy. But the emotional roller coaster that the Spartans were going through, the fact that they stayed resilient and found a way to will their way to a win was just unbelievable.
It was unbelievable. I had a chance to watch some of the highlights, and yeah, it was crazy watching those on Huddle. I'm sure Nick Keefer slept very well on Friday night, as did the rest of the team. But Hempfield's certainly not going to apologize for winning. That was a thriller, no matter how they did it and how much of a heads-up play. Jack Kopis. I mean, you don't always see that that kids are really paying attention like Jack did, and he saw him drop the ball, jumped on it, and kept the Spartans alive. That was wild. And I thought, Sean, the play in overtime was a terrific play call. It was basically a play-action bootleg, right? So you had Dietrich play action to Steinbeiser. Steinbeiser runs out to his left, kind of leaks out, if you will, while Dietrich is booting to his right, and then Dietrich stops and throws it back. So basically a throwback to Steinbeiser. He's wide open in the end zone for a touchdown. I thought that was a great play call, great play execution, and that put the Spartans ahead. And then you had Aiden Allison, who's been really good for Hempfield this year since transferring in. He had a sack on fourth down to seal the victory. So congratulations to the Spartans. Nick Keefer basically said it's hard to win in 6A, and it certainly is. And no matter how it gets done, they're happy about it for sure.
And the fact that they sealed it on defense was fitting because they had 2 scores on defense in that game. And while the offense came through in overtime on that play you talked about, and Steinbeiser had a big performance, so much of their success was because they were able to stay in that game with their defense. So a lot of credit to Coach Keefer and the Spartans. They get their first win in Class 6A play of the year as they win 33-27 against the Big Macs.
Also want to congratulate Brock Heisler. Almost said Brock Lesnar. Received his first
F5 here.
Received his first FBS offer from Arkansas State. So congratulations to him. I'm sure those offers will be rolling in for him.
Yeah, absolutely. He is a very promising player for them along the defensive line. Well, that will do it for our biggest takeaways from this past week. We will take a quick break. When we come back, we'll run down all the scores across Westmoreland County. We'll also look at the top performers. And later on in the show, you have to see this Plays of the Week. It is maybe the greatest segment we have ever had for Plays of the Week, as well as interviews with Nick Keefer of Hempfield area and Kiski area's Carson Heinle, and the Week 6 preview. That's all upcoming right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Play It Again Sports in Greensburg is your locally owned and operated sporting goods store. We set ourselves apart by offering a wide variety of both new and used equipment at competitive prices, located in the Greengate East Plaza below Walmart. Play It Again Sports' knowledgeable staff will help you and your family prepare for every athletic season. Whether you're looking to buy, sell, or trade, we are here as your one-stop shop. At Play It Again Sports in Greensburg, everybody plays.
Along the arc of a woman's life, there are many passages. Growing up, chasing dreams, building a career, embracing wisdom born of experience. There are times that make good health and well-being so vital. We provide care that helps women thrive at any age, at any stage. Independence Health System. Expert care here.
We roll along here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron each and every Wednesday at 7 p.m. I'm Sean. That's Dan. We've already run down the biggest takeaways from this past week, but Blake, let's look at the rest of the scores across Westmoreland County from Week 5. Some of these games we've already highlighted. You can go back and watch them. 4 games on video this past week, including Franklin Regional's 35-30 win over Kiski area as the Panthers went to 5-1. We also highlighted Southmoreland's 31-14 win over the Derry area Trojans. The Mount Pleasant Vikings with a thrilling 22-19 win against the Yaw Cougars. The other game that we had on video, Penn Trafford 34, Plum 10. I had the call on this one, Flick, and kind of by the end of the night, the game was secondary. And I do want to provide an update. I talked to Plum head coach Matt Morgan, I should say, about Trent Reese. And for those who saw the end of the broadcast, it was just really a scary sight. The game was called with about 2 minutes left after Reese of the Mustangs went down with an injury that was obviously very serious initially. We didn't even see what had happened necessarily. He was down behind the play as he tried to make a tackle on a long run by Cheplik. And there was really not a whole lot. He wasn't moving very much. They brought the trainers out. And within about 5 minutes, the ADs and coaches met and they called the game. So we kind of realized this was serious. They brought an ambulance. They took Trent Reese out in an ambulance. So I was hoping that we would hear good news. And I Sunday night texted Matt Morgan, the head coach, and he said, thanks for checking in. Trent is doing better. He was out of the hospital, I believe, the night of the game. He was released later that night. So that is great news. Obviously, when a game like that is derailed by injury, you really don't even think about the outcome. So I know the Warriors did a lot of good on the field. Tasso Whipple, of course, but the fact that the good news that came out is that Trent Reese was not seriously injured was really my biggest takeaway from that.
Yeah, and a lot of times with those injuries, you have to be really cautious, right? So you're just hoping anytime you see the stretcher or the ambulance that, okay, maybe it's not as serious as it looks. Hopefully, like this is what you're hoping, that it's just, you're trying to be cautious, precautionary, and those things, but you just don't know. And I wasn't there, Sean, but I think Chris said that he gave a thumbs up when he was being wheeled off. So that
I
was
will
good.
say the Warriors fans, obviously there was plenty of Plum fans there as well, but the Warriors fans by and large stayed until they got that indication and he left in the ambulance, because the game was over. People certainly did not have to stay,
right?
But I would say the vast majority of the fans did stay until Reese left in that ambulance. And yeah, to what you said, he did give the thumbs up, which is something you're always hoping to see. So kind of a scary sight, but glad that it worked out. And, hearing that, you can sort of focus more on the football aspect. A good win for Penn Trafford. They certainly, show that they can run the football as well as just about everyone if they can cut down on the penalties and struggles with the turnovers. So good win for John Ruane's crew. Now, it was non-conference, but we've talked about this before, Flick. It still has meaning because the conference as a whole, and maybe Penn Trafford in particular, will be fighting for wildcard spots. So you hope that your conference can get one or two spots for the wild cards that the committee chooses. So that could mean something potentially down the road. Hempfield area, 33, Cannon McMillan, 27 in overtime. We highlighted that one earlier. How about this? Woodland Hills 30, Greater Latrobe 20. There was a brief time that the Wildcats held the lead in that game. They were down in the first half. They had a flurry, much like Southmoreland did against Derry area. The Wildcats did against Woodland Hills, a couple of scores in short order, but they could not close it out. And the most notable thing in that game, Flick, no Alex Tash. I don't know that he's necessarily going to play this week either. It's not decided, but Ron Prady told me, I'm not going to play him until we feel 100% confident that he is good to go. We are not going to risk anything for his long term. So you have to wonder, maybe he will be held out potentially another week or so. And I did ask, will he play both sides of the ball when he is good to go? And they said, well, maybe instead of giving him 15 touches, we give him 10. Maybe instead of playing every snap on defense, he plays half the snaps. So it's really going to impact their season going forward. They would have loved to have had him against Woodland Hills. Didn't happen. They now have lost 2 conference games, but long term, I still think they'll have a chance to make the playoffs, and they probably need a healthy Tash to make that surge.
Yeah, they definitely will. And as I mentioned on the show last week, you have to consider Alex's long-term health, right? I mean, he has, again, more football ahead of him at one of the best programs, and I'm sure you'd agree with this, in college football, Penn State. So, yeah, I mean, you certainly have to look at that. And it's really tough, though, right? It's really, really tough. So I'm sure Alex wants to get out there and play. He wants to help these guys. He knows how many expectations there were, or how high they were, coming into this season for Latrobe. So I'm sure he really wants to be out there, but it is really tough. I know this team is way more than he and Johnny Wetzel, but man, did Johnny put up a gutsy performance with Alex out against Woodland Hills.
Yeah, they needed him to be really good, and he, at least offensively was outstanding. We know primarily they love to run the football, so they still like to unlock the passing attack a little bit more. But the fact that Wetzel, who missed, some of the game the previous week with an ailment, was able to come back and not only, impact the game in a positive way, but go over 200 yards on the ground speaks to his toughness as well. Ultimately, not enough as they fall to the Wolverines, who, much like Franklin Regional, stay perfect in Big East Conference play. Thomas Jefferson, 42, Bell Vernon area, 14. We talk about Tash being out. There's some guys, including Zoe Wade, who were out for the Leopards. Even in full strength, I'm not sure they would have been able to hang with Thomas Jefferson. The Jaguars are now 6-0, and hard to believe, but the Leopards are 1-3. A juggernaut in Class 3A, Elizabeth Forward taking care of business, 49-17 against Greensburg Salem. So winners of 4 straight, the Golden Lions have now lost 2 in a row. We know EF was going to be the favorite in that conference. They certainly looked the part in their first interstate conference matchup. The Borough Buccaneers get their first win of the season. They are now 1-5, courtesy of a 22-14 win over East Allegheny. We'll touch on it briefly, but Trey Corey, an absolute beast for Borough in that one. Freeport 48, Valley 20 as the Vikings fall to 0-6. South Allegheny gets a 49-28 victory over Ligonier Valley. The Gladiators were in 3A a year ago. They dropped down. They look like one of the best teams in Class 2A this year. They are now 5-1. The Rams dropped to 2-4. Bounce back win for Greensburg Central Catholic, 45-14 against Riverview. I thought it was going to be a competitive game. Ultimately, the Centurions took care of business in that one. They are 3-2 overall. However, the Jeanette Jayhawks, much like all the teams before them, unable to score against the Clareton Bears on a game played on Saturday. 43-0 Clareton over Jeanette. They are 6-0. Jeanette's 4-2. Jeanette had 1 first down in this game, Flick. We are seeing truly one of the best defenses in recent WPIAL history.
Yeah, it's incredible what they did against, almost said Sidney Crosby. It's almost hockey season. Samir Crosby for Greensburg Central Catholic, and then they just did the same thing against Jace Powell and Kimani Brown and the weapons that Jeanette has. It's like it doesn't matter who Clareton's going against. They're going to shut you down, and it really is incredible. And I guess it's not really a surprise, seeing what they've done over the last how many years. It's crazy.
Yeah, the different levels to, a solid team to a good team, and I think Jeanette and GCC are good teams, to a great team. I mean, it is incredible because Jeanette was the team that was blowing out a lot of squads early in the season and kind of embarrassing them with how easy it was to score. And for them to get shut out and really never even threaten against Clareton just tells you what level the Bears are at.
Well, it'll make that Clareton-Leechburg game intriguing anyway. I mean, Leechburg puts up a lot of points, but can they do it against Clareton? I'll say this.
If Leechburg gets more than 7 points, that will be a win for them.
That's right. Just give them the win, no matter what the final score is.
Just unbelievable what Wayne Wade's crew has done. Non-conference, North Hills 24, Norwin 7. The Knights have now lost 4 in a row. Monessen on a Saturday night, 32-17 win over Southside Beaver in non-conference. And on the college slate, St. Vincent fell 21-7 against Waynesburg. The Bearcats are now 1-3. Let's take a look at the top performers from week 5, the top passer, rusher, and receiver in the entire WPIAL, as well as several top performers specifically in Westmoreland County. The top passer, and this will be pertinent to Westmoreland County fans, came by way of Gateway, and it was a freshman, Elvin Koutsakis, 377 yards. Elvis, I should say. Don't get that name wrong. Elvis did not leave the building for the Gators last Friday. 24-41 for 377 yards. He had missed some time earlier this season with injury, but he is very, very talented. Certainly that stat line proves that. Speaking of freshmen, the top Westmoreland County passer, Anthony Smith of Southmoreland, 16 of 25 for 296. Braden Kuroda did it all for the Cougars, including 235 yards through the air for Yawk. Carson Heinle, who we'll hear from in a little bit later, Kiski area's standout quarterback, 16 of 27 for 209 yards. Curdy Wade, 188 for Bell Vernon area. And Dom Dietrich in the wild win for the Spartans goes for 185. The top rusher across the WPIAL, there could not be a better name for a top rusher than Charles Rush of Avella, 277 yards for the athlete named player. Trey Corey of Burr, we mentioned he had a monster performance. That included 239 yards rushing for the Buccaneers. John Wetzel, Greater Latrobe's quarterback, went for 218 on the ground, 1 yard more than Franklin Regional's Kyle Dupill. Tasso Whipple, 163 yards for Penn Trafford, and the homecoming king as well. And Aiden Steinbeiser of Hempfield area, 126 yards rushing for the Spartans. Lastly, the top receiver from the WPIAL, also by way of Gateway, Sean Moorfield Jr. had 12 catches for 181 yards. Southmoreland's Elliott Primus, 7 grabs for 155. Cole Doppelhauer, who has had a monster season despite his team struggles, 137 yards for Bell Vernon. Avon Shirley of Kiski area also had 137 yards receiving. And Southmoreland's Jackson Mickens, and even 100 yards as a pass catcher for the Scotties. That'll do it for all of the scores from week 5 as well as the top performers. We'll take a break, but you have to stick around because when we come back, perhaps the biggest edition ever of Plays of the Week. You don't want to miss that right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
At Smale Kia, we know that winning takes hard work, dedication, and a commitment to excellence. By sponsoring Shining Stars, we'll select 2 teams each season to help fund their booster programs. Rewarding their hard work, athletic progress, and community service is an investment we're proud to make. Right now, lease a 2025 Kia Sportage EX all-wheel drive, $299 a month, or lease a 2024 Kia Forte LXS for only $175 a month. Route 30 East Greensburg or smalekia.com.
Coming winter 2024, DBAT Pittsburgh East will be bringing the DBAT Sports family to Pittsburgh's East neighborhoods, featuring a 20,000 square foot state-of-the-art baseball and softball training facility with 4 dual Fungoman automatic pitching machines, 9 lesson cages featuring the best training tech in the game, including pro-sized baseball and fast-pitch bullpens, elite speed, strength, and agility coaching, professional baseball and softball instruction, 50-plus camps, clinics, party room, and a pro shop powered by pro-preferred brands Rawlings and Easton. Now offering Founders Club memberships. Learn more at dbatpiteast.com.
We roll along here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Flick, are you ready for maybe the biggest version ever of Plays of the Week?
Biggest and best, baby. Let's bring it on.
Yeah, we got a lot to get to, so we'll jump right in, and we begin with Derry area. And although the Trojans came up short on the road at Southmoreland, their effort never wavered, as demonstrated by Max Doherty and his determined run in the third quarter to give Derry its second touchdown, as called by John Flickinger and Bob Lasinski.
Fourth and goal from the 5. Sacco is going to give to Doherty. He scoots his way toward the end zone. He drives his way and he scores. Extra effort by Max. And he did it all. When he got to the 2, he kept the legs churning, reached it across the goal line, and the Trojans make it 28-13 at the 5:46 mark.
Yeah, that was a good second, third effort there by Max. He was just bound and determined to get that ball in the end zone. And, you know, he should have been stopped right after he got the ball there. You can see right up in the middle there. But he just kept those legs going and reached over and crossed the goal line.
That's what the weight room's all about right there.
We mentioned earlier in the show, Sean, about some injuries. Max Doherty also wasn't fully healthy. But when he was back there, he gave Darius something a little bit different from the backfield. And that touchdown actually kept them in the game. It was 28-14, a little bit past the midway point of the third quarter. So the game was still kind of up for grabs at that point. Great fourth down run by him. Very determined, gets into the end zone. And oh, by the way, Plays of the Week, I love how you're leaving the best for last. Very nice. Well played, Mr. Myers.
Yes, and by the way, that was definitely a weight room touchdown that your brother astutely pointed out. Well, we'll stay in that same game and now look at the Southmoreland side of things as the Scotties, they've been explosive in the passing game all season, and that continued against the Trojans as Anthony Smith hit a short pass to Elliott Primus, and he did the rest, giving Southmoreland a second quarter lead, as detailed once again by John and Uncle Bob.
See what happens on this third down play. Here's a flanker screen, going to be caught. Can the Trojans make the tackle? No, they cannot. And running is Primus to the corner and into the end zone for the touchdown. Boy, there were a couple of Trojans who had a chance to make the tackle, but Elliot Primus picks up his second touchdown of the night, 13th of the season from Smith. And it's 13-7 Scotties, and Coach Arone talked about you got to be able to tackle in space tonight. They didn't do it there.
Yeah, you had a couple Trojans right there that should have made the tackle, and he ran through it. You got to credit, Primus.
Well, if Elliot Primus wasn't a household name coming into the year, I think he is now, especially with the way that Anthony Smith is throwing the ball, but also Elliott's putting up big numbers every single week. He was nominated for a Player of the Week a couple weeks ago, and right there, man, able to escape some tackles. Kind of a tough kid to bring down, and he is so vital to that passing game in Southmoreland.
We continue plays of the week with Kiski area, and it was a record-setting night for Cavaliers quarterback Carson Heinle, who we'll hear from in just a little bit. He continued to rack up the yards and the touchdowns against Franklin Regional. His second quarter connection with Andrew Finney gave KA a 2-score lead, with Jonathan Whaley captioning the video.
From the near hash mark, twins to the right side, twins to the short side, sidecar to the right. Heinle looking, swings it out, and a nice one-handed catch out there by Shirley, and Shirley's going to take it in. 15-yard touchdown catch. Shirley with the quick sidearm throw by the left-handed quarterback, Carson Heinle.
Now we should note, despite what Jonathan said, that was Andrew Finney on the touchdown, so
yes.
Credit where it's due. Avon Shirley has plenty of his own success this season, but that was Finney.
Well, it's easy to make that mistake because Shirley's been so great this year, so we'll give JW the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely. Well, he redeems himself in this next play because we now look at the Franklin Regional side of things, and facing a 3-score deficit in the first half, the Panthers needed a big play, and the combination of Chase Lemke and Elijah Bennett provided that. Their long connection started to come back for FR, with Jonathan providing the commentary.
And Lemke drops back. Lemke fires the ball down the field. Ball's up in the air, and it's caught at the 40, to the 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown. That's that chunk play. Elijah Bennett with his 4th touchdown of the year. An 80-yard catch and run by him.
I think that play and then that 80-yard rip by Kyle Dupil we talked about earlier, which set up a touchdown. 2 biggest plays of the game for Franklin Regional, but that 80-yard touchdown pass, again, I think Chase Lemke maybe goes underappreciated, not by Franklin Regional, but, when talking about the best players in the WPIAL and Westmoreland County, but he just keeps getting better and better, I think, every game, and even when the running game's not there, he's able to make some big completions. And as you mentioned earlier, Sean, Franklin Regional doesn't get that big play. Maybe Kiski wins.
Yeah, and it wasn't like he was throwing to a wide-open Bennett there. I mean, he had to put the pass on the mark, and then Bennett had to make a nice catch in traffic, and then obviously he showed his speed on the back end. Well, talking about speed, we continue plays of the week with Penn Trafford and Tasso Whipple, who had another stellar night for the Warriors. He won Homecoming King prior to the start of the game, and then he gashed Plum for 3 scores. His third quarter touchdown put an exclamation point on his effort, with myself and Mark Katarski highlighting that action.
Remember him fondly as a young man.
There's a little bit of a jump by Whipple, and now he has room in front of him. And Tasso trying to run away from everyone, and he will score. And he finishes it with the hurdle into the end zone from 68 yards.
You'd want to say maybe a little fatigue there on the defense, just not able to wrap up and secure the tackle the way they would want. And the King has a trifecta now. 3 touchdowns for the Homecoming King. Tasso Whipple putting on a show here tonight.
Sean, why do you think he hurdled the goal line there? Was he trying to bait the officials and throwing a flag like they did a couple of weeks ago?
It wasn't a penalty that time, I guess. Yeah, for those who don't know, he got a penalty for a hurdle against the player a few weeks ago. It still made plays of the week because it was that awesome. So, yeah, congrats to Tasso. And I don't know if you saw this, by the way. We're very familiar with his date, who is the homecoming queen, Reese Solomon.
Yes.
Who is an incredible goalkeeper for the girls' soccer team.
She's been awesome this year, man.
Good stuff at Penn Trafford. We continue plays of the week with York, and prior to the Vikings' last-minute score, it was the Cougars who engineered a late touchdown drive of their own, as Raiden Kuroda hooked up with Jaden Dixon-Brentzel to give York the lead, as called by Dave Franzak and John Bainbridge.
Wipe his hands on his towel. And now we'll look to throw. Throws a bubble screen, and it's going to be a touchdown for Dixon-Brentzel.
That was a beautiful pass. Great touch over the Mount Pleasant defender. Laid it right in there. Emptied the backfield out with the halfback swinging to the right. Beautiful ball.
Big time pass play there. And Sean, did you happen to see the celebration by the offensive line? I think it was 64 if you have York's
Bryce
roster.
Harvey, my friend.
Bryce Harvey. What was he? Was that a somersault or what? What was he trying to do?
He was happy, I suppose, my friend. I don't know.
I guess.
Probably can't pull off a backflip. That's hard for anyone, especially an offensive lineman. So he had to go something a little more simplistic and routine. Yeah, hopefully he's doing a lot more somersaults like that the rest of this conference season.
All right, well, next time they score a big touchdown, I want to see a backflip, Bryce. Let's go.
All right, well, speaking of backflips, this was even more spectacular than a backflip.
Here we go, baby.
We wrap up plays of the week. You know what this one's going to be. It's Mount Pleasant and the night that ultimately belonged to the Vikings, and in particular, Jared Garn. His spectacular touchdown catch in the second quarter not only was crucial for the win, it also drew some national attention, with Dave and John providing the backdrop.
Let's see the play. Let's see the SportsCenter Top 10, and you got Moss.
Shotgun formation for the Vikings. Chaffield's going to roll near side here. Picks up a block. Throws downfield. It's going to be short. It's going to be a jump. Oh, guard comes down with it. Touchdown, Mount Pleasant.
That's just an athletic play by guard. He was triple covered and just went up and got it. Just went up and got it. That's what they call that on ESPN. You've been mossed.
You've been mossed. You took the words out of my mouth, John. What a heck of a play by the senior wide receiver to go up and catch that ball for the score.
Come on. He's not talking about us. Mount Pleasant's Colt Chatfield. This is high school football, throwing it deep downfield to Jarrett Garn. Quadruple coverage? And he wasn't done. Okay, actually triple coverage. Had some defenders just watching. One guy was on the ground. They had a front row seat. You saw that on Westmoreland Sports Network.
Let's go high school ranks, Pennsylvania football right here. Mount Pleasant versus York. York? You're going to look at this one, York. You got three defenders over there. How the heck you not make a play? But Jared Garn makes a play. Garn makes an unbelievable catch. Are you kidding me?
Over three guys.
Look at that. Look at one more look at it.
Rolls to his left.
After three guys, defense corner is like, man, what a great call. You got Mosley, the York.
So the crazy part about this, Sean, first of all, congratulations to Jarrett Garn, because not only did he go national, he allowed us to go national as well. So that was awesome. I was messaging with Jarrett on Twitter, actually, on Friday night about this, letting him know, like, hey, let's try to get this on SportsCenter. Make sure you ask people to retweet. But I didn't even know about the play. I happened to be talking with our producer, Matt Palumbo, that night, just about some things, how the game went, how the broadcast went. And he's like, you have to check out this play. And, that was about it. And then I kind of forgot about it because, Friday night, you're trying to do a bunch of different things, archive the broadcast, make sure that everything's up on the website and everything. And he texts me again, and he's like, this is where you can find the play. This is the timestamp. Go check it out. And I looked at it, and I was like, oh, my God, we could get this on You Got Mossed. I didn't even think about SportsCenter Top 10, but when I was tweeting it out, I thought, we'll put SC Top 10 on it. I sent a private message to the assignment desk at ESPN, which we've done before when we've gotten on there for Seton Hill baseball catches in center field.
Three times, by the way, I believe, right?
Three. Yeah, well, this is our fourth time total, but 3 catches 3 years in a row for Seton Hill baseball. And then our old pal, who still does some work for us, even though he lives in West Virginia, Dave Oliverio, texts me on Saturday morning and says, hey, I just saw your the play by the Mount Pleasant kid on SportsCenter Top 10, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. This is great. So I was messaging with Jared a little bit more, and people were messaging him, and it's just really cool to see, man. I mean, I feel bad for Yock a little bit. Some of those guys took some shots at the defense, especially the You Got Mossed segment. But it's all in good fun, and it was more about
motivation.
What's that?
Some motivation maybe for
That's
Coach
right.
Hoffer.
That's right. Some good motivation. But it was more about the catch and highlighting Jarrett and Mount Pleasant and the catch itself than anything else. So that was really cool. That was really cool.
And by the way, I don't want to steal your thunder here, Flick, but
Please.
If you don't say it, I'll say it. This is what's so awesome about the opportunity for us to broadcast these games, and why everyone associated with these football programs should be hoping that we do games like that, is because we get the opportunity to spotlight these players. And then I cannot imagine what that feels like to be Jarrett Garn right now, right? I mean, that's possible, one, because he did all the heavy lifting, he made the play, but the fact that we were able to capture it and then pass it along to the right people, that's a great thing about what we do. And why, if you're a football player, you should be hoping that we're broadcasting your games.
And I mentioned Matt Palumbo. If it wasn't for Lorenzo Cota, we would not have seen anything. He ran the camera that night for the game, so shout out to Lorenzo for getting a nice shot of it. And you're right. I mean, this is something that Jarrett's going to have forever. He was featured nationally on ESPN twice in one weekend. I mean, seriously, that's something you tell your kids, and really it makes us proud, like you mentioned, Sean, to be there and be able to capture something like that. That's why we do what we do.
Absolutely. Well, great stuff on maybe the best edition of Plays of the Week that we have ever had. Well, we're going to try to follow that up somehow next. I will talk to the head man of the Hempfield area Spartans, Nick Keefer, after their incredible victory in overtime against the Big Macs. And, oh, by the way, they have a pretty big game this week as well against the rival Norwin Knights. That's upcoming next right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
In the mood for surf and turf? D'Annunzio's at the Arnold Palmer Regional Airport in Latrobe has what you're craving. Every Sunday after brunch, our Surf and Turf Special is available until close. The Surf and Turf Special is highlighted by a petite filet and broiled lobster tail with drawn butter. The Surf and Turf Special includes fresh vegetables, a starch, and a salad or soup. So the next time you think of surf and turf, think D'Annunzio's in Latrobe every Sunday. It's a family tradition.
Get to Mike Hamlin Hyundai during the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event. Drive the new 2024 Hyundai Elantra SEL or Tucson SE with 1.99% financing for up to 60 months. All vehicles are backed by the Mike Hamlin Advantage oil changes for life.
We continue here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Sean Myers now joined by Nick Keefer, the head coach of the Hempfield area Spartans, coming off of a thrilling win in overtime against Cannon McMillan, 33-27. You get that first conference win of 2024, Nick. I know probably had to be one of the craziest games you've been a part of. Seems like your team has certainly a flair for the dramatic. What was the emotional roller coaster for you, the fans, the players, everyone involved in that game?
I think my heart rate is still up from it. It was the craziest game I've been a part of, for sure. Definitely roller coaster of emotions. Our defense played so well, forcing 3 turnovers and returning 2 for touchdowns. And then, offensively, we were having some struggles a little bit. Their defense was pretty good, and the kids never quit. Until the very end. They kept fighting. They found a way to make it happen, and the defense stepped up huge again in overtime and stopped them, and we were able to score first. So it was just, like you said, roller coaster of emotions. But I think the crowd enjoyed it. The community that was there was excited, and so hopefully build some momentum that will carry into this week.
I know you said the team never quit. Is there any specific lessons or takeaways that your players can apply going forward?
So many, right? It's never over until the very end. They just found a way to make it happen. They did whatever it took. Whether it was a fumble recovery, an interception return, falling on a fumble in the end zone, making sure we make the extra point to go to overtime. So it was a lot of people stepped up. Too many to mention. I don't want to forget anybody, but it was all the kids just did what needed done. So I'm very, very proud of them, and hopefully it works out, and we continue that momentum.
I know certainly it's not the only game that's come down to the wire this season. Your other win at Kiski area, kind of similar, maybe not quite as crazy, but it did come down to a field goal late for your team to win, and then you had to survive a late threat from the Cavaliers as well. So do you feel as though your team is, I guess, familiar and comfortable in these, late game scenarios at this point?
I think they are. When we were in that situation at Kiski, we said, hey, we're going to get the ball, we're going to drive down, we're going to score, or Sawyer's going to win it for us. And the kids had full faith, and they believed that that's what we were going to do, and it happened. So I think when we got the ball with around 2 minutes left against Cannon Mac, there was no we're out of it or this is a dream. We knew what we had to do. We went down there and we made it happen. So I was really proud of the kids, and that goes for them, being prepared to practice and taking everything seriously with what we do, throughout the week. So I think it proves what we do is working, and the kids is just building them up even more.
I know you said things are working. Obviously, the team has made a stride from a year ago. I think that's fair to say. You're probably still not exactly where you want to be, but you're in the right direction, it appears. How has the team gotten better? And now that you're in your second year as the head coach, how have you gotten better from a year ago?
Well, I think, each year is different, but I think that a lot of the kids that were making plays last year are still on the field for us this year. So I think they build off of those experiences, and they don't flinch or blink in those situations. It's like they did it already, and they're ready to go, and they listen, and they're prepared. And I think that that experience, really helps them this year for sure, especially with our leaders.
Well, one of your leaders is Dom Dietrich, and I know he was in the news quite a bit before he was even able to play a game this season. And the fact that he's back in itself is a major accomplishment, but he's not just back, he's playing at an incredibly high level. What have you seen from him as a person and as a player this season?
Just what a leader. Talk about a kid that, got told in the summer he couldn't do anything for 7 weeks or 8 weeks, and he had to not raise his heart rate over 70, and he followed every single rule that those doctors placed on him, and that's just the type of kid he is. He's a great leader, does everything the right way, and that it showed. He got voted captain this year as a junior, and the kids just looked up to him. He's like having another coach out there on the field for us. So I can't ask any more of him for the type of leader he is, and what he brings on the field for this team.
I know when I talked to you before the season began, you said we might not have one go-to receiver. We might have 10 different guys. I think you have even more than 10 different guys who have at least 2 or 3 catches this season. It's got to be one of the more extensive lists in terms of how many different guys have caught a ball that I've seen in the WPIAL. So is that a good thing?
I think it is, and it shows the type of relationship that Dom has with his receivers. He trusts all of them. He doesn't just look at one person. We have a lot of concepts in our pass game that kids get open, and he gives them a shot to make a play. Whether it's a full, an H-back out of the backfield, or it's our outside receivers, or it's an inside slot receiver making a play. So he gives a lot of people a chance to make a play, and those kids take advantage of their opportunities. So I was honest when people always ask me who's our go-to receiver. I can't give you one name because we have a bunch of kids that step up when they're asked to, and we have even we have some sophomores that are trying to get on the field now too that we think can make something happen with the ball. So I'm excited about our skill kids, and they put a lot of time in. It does just happen on its own. They put a lot of time in the off season, working with Dom and lifting weights and getting on the same page. So I'm happy to see them have their successes.
Getting a road win in 6A is always going to be impressive, regardless of when it happens. But the fact that it came after a really ugly, lopsided loss against Pittsburgh Central Catholic probably speaks to some resiliency that your team has. How did they handle the bounce back after that rough one against the Vikings?
We talk about having faith in each other and our coaches and in what we do as a program. We knew it was going to be a tough task, back-to-back weeks with NA and Pittsburgh Central Catholic, but we thought we gave a pretty good fight 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago against North Allegheny. Central Catholic, not as much. We had some injuries. I thought that kind of hurt us a little bit, but just talking to the kids that we are a good football team, and we do the right things, and if we keep plugging away and keep doing that, good things are going to happen to you. So I was, they deserve that. I was excited for them about their win, at Kiski. We fought hard 2 weeks. We didn't quit against those teams, and they're ranked so high for a reason. And but we thought we competed with them, and we think we're a pretty good football team too. So for them to go on the road, like you said, it's any level of football, to get a win on the road is going to be difficult, especially when you turn the ball over. So we were very fortunate to come away with a win this last week. It just, it's just a testament to our kids that they just kept fighting and they kept believing in each other, and they did it for each other. So I'm excited for them. I'm excited for, to make sure that they keep growing as a team. And I'm looking forward to this week to hopefully take another step in that right direction on where we want to go.
Well, I would imagine it doesn't just feel like another week this week, because it is the rivalry matchup against the Norwin Knights. How much different is the environment? How much different is the preparation? And do you get that buzz around the players?
I think the kids always prepare hard. The coaches are always putting in hours of film study in the game plan. I think the fact that we know each other so well kind of amps up the how much we're preparing, because we know what they're going to do. They know what we're going to do. And, it's trying to get some things to give yourself an advantage. So I think that, amps it up a little bit. It's homecoming, coming off of a big victory. So the stadium should be rocking. We have a great support from the Hempfield community, and, Norwin's right down the road. That, they have a great community as well, who will probably travel. So it should be a really nice atmosphere for the kids. And I like to say that's what high school football is about. We don't get as many of those local games as we did the past 2 years, but there's nothing we can do about that. But when you do get the opportunity, like this week, especially a homecoming where there's going to be a big crowd, for that, and it's a team right up the road, it's exciting, and I'm excited for the kids to go out there and experience that for themselves this year.
Before you became the head coach of Hempfield area, you were a longtime assistant, and that includes under Mike Brown, now the head coach for the Norwin Knights. So what's that like, going against a person that you worked so closely with a few years ago?
It's pretty neat. I really appreciated being able to work with Mike that 1 year. I was a freshman coach the year before that, and then once that team got eliminated, I moved up to the varsity staff, and I learned a lot from him about practice structures and some schemes and things like that. So I like all those guys, and it's pretty cool going against him, just because we have that relationship.
When you look at the Knights on film, I know they got off to a great start. I was there firsthand for their win against Penn Trafford, but they sputtered a bit recently. What jumps out as far as their strengths and maybe some areas that they've struggled with?
They're a good football team. To win a game in 6A, it's very difficult. So when you look at the teams they did beat, they beat two good teams, and they're big and strong. They have kids they have really good running backs. They have 3 kids who can take it to the house on any carry. They have receivers who catch the ball really well and are fast, and I know Tristan's hurt right now. He'll probably play against us, right? But you're looking at the Big East first team all conference QB as a sophomore last year. So I think they're very talented, and they do a lot of good things on offense and on defense. So we got our work cut out for us for sure. But it's up. We just gotta play sound football and read our keys and block and tackle and do our assignment. And then I think some good things can happen.
And to expand upon that, what else comes to mind as far as the biggest keys to victory against Norwin?
I think we lucked out this last week with the us turning the ball over and still coming away with a victory. So I think that's going to be the key this week, is making sure we're protecting the football. You can't give them a short field and on offense, or they're going to capitalize. They have a good defense that flies around, and we just have to take care of the football and take advantage of any miscues that they have, and make a play when you have the opportunity. I think if we take care of those things, we'll be in a good position to win the game.
Well, Nick, thanks so much for taking the time to do this. We appreciate it as always, and good luck.
Well, thanks for everything you do, Sean. Westmoreland Sports is great, and we appreciate everything you guys have.
That is Nick Keefer, the head coach of the Hempfield area Spartans. We'll take a quick break and continue with more after this on the Westmoreland Sports Network.
It may be small, but it can bear over 4,000 times its own weight. And that's just the door hinge. Sturdy design, all the way down to the smallest detail. The Taos. Hop in. It's a VW.
For a great deal on a new 2024 Volkswagen Taos, visit Sendell VW in Greensburg. SendellVW.com.
Welcome back to Westmoreland on the Gridiron. We appreciate Nick Keefer taking the time to talk in what is probably the busiest week of his season. I know that he gets really geared up to go against the Norwin Knights. Everyone in the community gets excited. It's also homecoming this week. So very exciting stuff for the Spartans and for the Knights as well. That's the game that, whether they admit it or not, that's the one that both those teams circle before the season, I think. So good to talk to him this week on a week where I'm sure he is laser focused on the task at hand.
Get to Spartan Stadium early, man. I've been there before. You don't get there early enough, you get stuck. And the time's ticking down to going on the air. So
yes.
So maybe I'm just telling you, Sean, to get there early.
Sounds like a person who's been burned in the past.
Well, this should be something directed at Christopher Smith. Anyway, go ahead.
Yes. From one interview to another, we're going to hear from Kiski area's record-setting quarterback, Carson Heinle, in just a moment. But Flick, he was chosen once again by the Cavaliers faithful, being loud and proud this week with the voting.
3-time Westmoreland Sports Network Player of the Week. I don't think we've ever had a 3-time winner before. Either way, congratulations to Carson. Even though they lost, as you mentioned, I mean, he really couldn't have done anything else. You throw 27 passes, you throw 11 incompletions. That's pretty good, right? 16 to 27, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns, rushed for a touchdown, and almost rushed for 100 yards. So, he did his job, and it's great to see him continually taking steps every year and just keep on getting better. Our man Kyle Dupil, I challenged the Franklin Regional voters last week, and it was a lot closer than it was 2 weeks ago. Still almost there, but, obviously a great performance by him. 2 touchdowns, 217 yards. Anthony Smith, we talked about him earlier. The freshman continuing to light things up. And then Johnny Wetzel with just a very gutsy performance against Woodland Hills, also a nominee this week. Carried 34 times, 2 touchdowns. In that loss to Woodland Hills with the absence of Alex Tash. So, again, you can only win once a year. So Carson will retire as a 3-time winner. Obviously, we mentioned earlier, I'm going to talk to him about him breaking the all-time passing yards record at Kiski area as well. But there'll be still more chances for some of these other guys to win a Player of the Week and get a chance to be featured on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Well, looking forward to that interview. The 3rd time, as you mentioned, Carson Heinle, the now record-setting quarterback of the Cavaliers. That's upcoming next right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Drive like a champion with Bowser Chevrolet of Monroeville. You're always on the winning team with Bowser Chevrolet. Visit BowserChevrolet.com 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and get the power of Bowser in your hands. Customize your payments, apply for financing, get a value for your trade and more with the Bowser Express Store. See the full lineup of Chevy cars, trucks, and SUVs at BowserChevrolet.com. Bowser Chevrolet, where the power of Bowser is yours.
It is Westmoreland on the Gridiron, and it is time to talk with our Week 5 Westmoreland Sports Network Player of the Week. You've seen me talk to him the last 2 years, and now for a 3rd year, 3-time Player of the Week. He is Carson Heinle, senior quarterback now from Kiski area. Carson last week completed 16 of 27 passes, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns, also rushed for a touchdown as well, and broke the all-time career passing record at Kiski area, which we'll get into with him. But first of all, Carson, congratulations. I hope you're excited to be talking to me for the third time. I don't know, but thanks for coming on the show again, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So I know it was in a loss last week, Carson, 35-30 to Franklin Regional, but man, you guys got off to a terrific start, 17-0. You hit Andrew Finney for a touchdown, ran one in yourself. You got a big field goal as well, and you really couldn't have asked for a better start. What kind of led to that great start in Murraysville last week?
Yeah, our defense came out and got two awesome stops for us, and then our O-line does a great job of giving me time every week. And Landon Cusick, he really helps me out. He always runs the ball really hard. So that really puts a lot of pressure on the defenses.
It had to be so exciting, up 17-0, but unfortunately, as quickly as you were up, suddenly Franklin Regional scores 2 touchdowns, a long pass play, another pass play, and you guys were up just 17-14 at halftime, and they end up scoring 28 unanswered points to win the game. So, being up 17-0 and then kind of letting that game slide away, what do you think the biggest factor was and something maybe you're working on still to try to put that game away?
Yeah, we got a little comfortable in halftime. We didn't come out with that same fire we had. I mean, they made some good adjustments, but we still just, overall, we got to come out with better intensity out of half,
Well, and despite losing, you guys have been really competitive in many of the games you've played in this year. I know you lost to Penn Trafford 33-7, but it was 7-7 in the second half. Again, you were up 17-0 on Franklin. I thought you played Gateway competitively as well. So do you guys go into these games, despite only having one win, do you go into them, though, confident that you can win?
Yeah, our coaches do a really good job of getting us fired up. They always have a great game plan for us. And, we always try to look on the positive side. We're just a handful of plays away from winning the game, so.
Is that something when you go over, the Saturday morning film session that the coaches maybe pinpoint a couple of plays, like if we did this differently, the game may have been differently?
For sure. It changes the whole verdict of the game,
Well, congratulations. You broke the career passing record at Kiski area, previously held by Josh Vick. You now have thrown for 3,753 yards, and you're going to keep adding to that for sure. What does that mean to you, Carson, to be the all-time leading passer at Kiski area?
It means a lot because, there was a ton of awesome quarterbacks that have came through Kiski. Josh Vick had big D1 offers like New Hampshire and everything like that. So, I really just credit my coaches and all the wideouts and my O-line for really helping me get there, because I couldn't have done it without them.
I didn't get a chance, by the way, to look Josh up. How long ago did he play? Do you have any idea?
I don't know the exact time. I know his record hasn't been broken for a while, so I don't know the exact year though.
Did you have any idea going into the game that you were close?
Yeah, I did. Since last year, I was always looking at it because I wanted to break it last year, but I broke the passing touchdown record last year. So I was I need the passing yards record. So I've kind of been looking at it,
Passing yards and passing touchdowns in a great career for you. And obviously some guys have helped you along the way. We look at guys like Bart Martin and Isaiah Gonzalez. But now this year you kind of have a new target in Avon Shirley. Talk about the relationship between you guys who you hooked up last week to kind of keep you guys alive. Unfortunately, couldn't get that onside kick against Franklin Regional, but what makes your connection special with Avon?
Yeah, I've always knew Avon growing up. I played midget league with him and Andrew and Avon's brother Tegan. They've been playing 7-on-7 the whole offseason, getting better, working with some special coaches like Trey Tipton from Pitt and stuff like that. And they've really stepped it up this year. I'm really proud of them.
So the first time we talked a couple of years ago, you were just a sophomore. Probably seems like a long time ago for you now. But you eventually got the starting job that year and you haven't looked back. And one of the questions I asked you last year was just about how you've progressed as a quarterback. So I want to ask you that again, now another year of experience under your belt. How have you kind of progressed, and maybe what are some of the things you've noticed in your game that you've gotten better at?
Yeah, I've been working on my speed a little bit and stuff like that, and obviously my strength. But I've been going to a quarterback coach. His name's Brad Mandler. He's been really helping me put some more zip on the ball, be a more rotational thrower. and stuff like that. So he really elevated my game a lot. So
Talking with our week 6, make that week 5 Westmoreland Sports Network Player of the Week, Carson Heinle from Kiski area. A few more questions for you, Carson. What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind, and do you believe you'll leave behind at Kiski area? Trying to kind of pass it off to the next quarterback at Kiski.
yeah, I hope that all the other quarterbacks should just always be ready for their opportunity, and always like never give up, because you never know when that opportunity is going to like come your way and stuff like that, and always just keep working.
Well, and now that you're a senior, I have to ask you, do you kind of, when you look back and maybe, at the end of the season, you'll have another favorite game, but is there a game that sticks out when you look back at your career that you can point at and say, man, that was the best?
Yeah, I mean, last year against Highlands, playing for Coach A, and like he's coached at Highlands, had so many great teams at Highlands. I mean, to beat them for Coach A was an awesome win and awesome feeling to do, for Coach A.
Yeah, and I went back and listened to our interview last year. We talked after it because you put up that great performance in that game you're talking about, and then you won Player of the Week, and I know how emotional it was, for you guys to get that victory for Coach Albert and for him too. So that's pretty cool to hear about. How about your hobbies away from football? What are some of the things you like to do other than basketball? And then you can throw that in there, I guess, if you want, because you are a hooper. But anything besides sports that you like to do to try to get away from it a little bit?
I mean, I know it's a sport, but I like to golf a lot. I golf with my brothers and my family like that. But like during the winter, I like to snowboard and stuff like that. So I mean, one of my, obviously football. I just off season in the winter, I like doing 7-on-7. You know what I mean? So that's about it.
Is there any specific golf course that you really like to go to?
Oh, I feel like you asked me this last year.
Did I ask you? I can't remember what you said now. I didn't listen to that part.
It's my home course, Vandergrift Golf Course.
That's right.
Yeah.
We've talked too often, buddy. That's for sure. But I enjoy it. I don't mean it as a negative. But that's right. I did ask you that. So in terms of college, would you like to continue playing football? I'm sure you received some interest, this being your senior year. Where are you kind of at with that?
Yeah, if I have the opportunity to play at a school that I like and I want to be there, I'll play football. But I mean, a lot of schools like FCS level, they're saying like we need your senior year film and stuff like that. So I just need to keep grinding this senior year and put up a great season. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's far from over for sure. So keep putting up that good tape. One final thing for you, as you know, we always leave off our Player of the Week talking about your next game and your next game against Latrobe. What do you guys have to do well against Latrobe to come away with a win?
Our defense, which I'm very confident we can stop. I mean, they have a great quarterback, Wetzel. He likes to run the ball a lot. They just quarterback power with him. So if we can shut him down, I'm very confident we can put points up on the board.
Carson, it was great talking to you again. Congratulations on your career, on breaking records. Keep doing what you're doing, getting that college interest, and hopefully you guys can have some success finishing out the year here.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. 3-time right there, Carson Heinle, Westmoreland Sports Network Player of the Week. We'll be back. We'll talk about Week 6 games here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron coming up in a moment.
I am the swiftest creature alive. I can make it. I will make it.
That's where we come in. A Collision Shop by Jason Mignon is your one-stop shop for all things auto body repair. Our experienced technicians and state-of-the-art facilities have you covered. Body repairs, refinishing, glass replacement, and more. Our friendly office staff is happy to assist you through every step of your vehicle's repair process. Visit thecollisionshopbyjason.com for our complete list of services.
I feel like it's definitely very important for high school, because a lot of kids get peer pressured into drinking and doing drugs. So doing the events in a school setting, I feel like definitely try to prevent kids from going to parties and drinking and driving and doing drugs and being peer pressured.
We just want to talk about the dangers of the substance abuse in our community, and we want to help be a part of stopping that.
For our final segment of this edition of the Westmoreland Sports Network's Westmoreland on the Gridiron, we appreciate Carson Heinle, the player of the week of the Kiski area Cavaliers, for taking time out of his schedule. Do you think he's sick of talking to you at this point, Flick?
I would think so. Yeah. I apologized to him off the air after we were done and said, this will be the last time, man. And he said, it better be. And he hung up on me. Can you believe he did that?
I think you're fibbing.
I'm just fibbing. He's a really good kid, good interview, and it's always good to talk to him.
Absolutely. Well, he will be playing in one of the very many Westmoreland versus Westmoreland matchups this week, the Week 6 preview. And so far, I would say this is going to be our favorite week for our teams doing battle. Now, I guess the good is that we're guaranteed that one of the teams is going to win when it's Westmoreland on Westmoreland. The bad is one of the teams has to lose. So, we're right down the middle, 50-50 on those ones. But some really fun matchups. We will have coverage of many of them, including the one we highlighted earlier, Norwin at Hempfield area. Identical 2-4 records for these teams. The Knights have been sputtering. They've battled some significant injuries. The Spartans have been riding high, courtesy of that thrilling overtime win. So this will be a big one. In Class 6A, we'll have video coverage of that at 7 p.m. The vast majority of these games, by the way, no Penn Trafford home game this week, so I think everything will be Friday at 7 p.m. this week.
It is interesting to note, Sean, when you talk with Nick Keefer, he said that he expects Tristan Tavares to play the Norwin quarterback on Friday. Now, whether that's going to happen, we don't know, but it's interesting that Hempfield is preparing for him.
I will say this. And I talked to him after that interview as well, and he said the same thing. He's like, I don't expect that he'd be 100%. Maybe if that's the case, he doesn't run as much. Because remember, when he went out against North Allegheny, he was using his legs more than his arm. Mm-hmm. But he does anticipate that. But a good coach has to, right? You plan for, to be honest, the better of the quarterbacks. And if Tavares doesn't play, then you're not caught off guard, because you're expecting, that it's going to be a dual threat, very talented young man. So I think it makes sense to prepare for that. That said, knowing how big this game is, I'm sure if there's any way possible that he's able to play, Tavares will want to be out there. So certainly we'll see how it plays out. It's one of those things that is probably going to come down to no one really knowing for sure until right before kickoff on Friday night at Spartan Stadium. Another Westmoreland County clash that we will have coverage of, Mount Pleasant at Greensburg-Salem. It's hard to believe, but this might determine if the Golden Lions or Vikings get into the playoffs. Just to be completely honest, they will be heavy underdogs against EF. The way Southmoreland's playing, I think the Scotties would be favored against these teams. 3 would be guaranteed in, so you want to get one of those top 3 spots. It might come down to Vikings, Golden Lions. So while it's just their second conference game, Flick, it feels like a massive one.
Yeah, and if you're Greensburg-Salem, I mean, you want to get those good juices flowing, right? And they had such a great start to the season, and now they've lost 2 in a row and not in great fashion. So you'd love to get a win, get that momentum going, get to a portion of your schedule where, it's probably going to be more competitive for you. And if you're Mount Pleasant, maybe you're hoping that, you can win by 2 points instead of, 1 point. So we'll see. It's a big one, though.
Safe bet it will come down to a final possession just because that's how all the Vikings games have basically gone this season. Well, this will be a big one as well, but it'll be in Class 1A Eastern Conference play. Jeanette 4-2 coming off of that shutout loss against Clareton. Greensburg Central Catholic 3-2. They had a very nice win against Riverview. Again, I think that's a solid Raiders team. So for GCC to do what they did was impressive. And again, even if the records and the implications for the standings weren't as significant as they are, this is still just a great rivalry. I will say it's probably a little bit more cordial between the coaches. Now, we'll see if that translates with the players, but I think that JT and Coach Pallone have major respect for one another. Those guys get along when it's not Friday night when they're going head-to-head, but it's going to be a great matchup nonetheless.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's always fun with the two communities getting together. I don't think that the rivalry is as heated nearly as as it used to be. Even maybe a couple of years ago when when Greensburg Central Catholic threw that touchdown pass late in the game for no reason. But I was looking back, Sean, and this is terrible because I'm literally doing this on the fly, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it or not. But it's interesting to note that.
Should we use a Dan pause right now?
Yes, can you do that?
Sound effect, a Dan pause.
Can you do that? Let me see if I can find. I did find it. Look, I am so good. So the all-time series, Jeanette leads at 21, 11, and 1. But really, they haven't had a competitive game on either side since 2012. I guess you could say 2015. It was 49-35. 2012 was 7-6. Okay. All the other years, last year, 42-24 Central. 2022, 44-0 Central. GCC wins 49-3 in 2021. And then Jeanette 55-0. Jeanette 48-14. Jeanette 40-14. Jeanette 55-7. Jeanette 56-0. In what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight years they had won, and now GCC has won 3 straight years. So, it's an exciting rivalry and everything, the build up, but we really haven't had a super competitive game, I guess, since 2015 or since 2012. So I don't want to put any, I'm not trying to douse it or anything, but it is interesting to note. I was looking at that. I think Jeanette posted those scores. So interesting.
We don't do predictions here. We've talked about that, and it's probably just not a great idea.
It's just not it's just not.
I will predict that this will be a very competitive game.
All right.
I don't see right now, both teams have explosive playmakers and probably not a ton of depth. And they both, have fared pretty similar against common opponents. I mean, you look at that. Obviously, everyone struggles against Clairton. I truly see this being a very competitive game and a meaningful one as well. We know Leechburg's also in the conversation. They have a big win earlier this season against Jeanette. But I think that this will have major implications, maybe battling for second or third place potentially in this conference. But bragging rights, of course, always at stake when it's Jayhawks and Centurions. Elizabeth Forward, the heavy favorite in the Class 3A Interstate Conference, makes the trek out to Derry area. That will be one of our broadcasts as well, as the Trojans are 3-3. EF also 3-3, but a little misleading. They played some really tough teams early. And Fox Chapel host Franklin Regional. This is not a conference game. The Panthers step out of the conference, which I'm sure that they won't mind. Maybe a little bit of a reprieve going against a struggling Fox's team. So an opportunity maybe for the Panthers to get some of those players further down on the depth chart, some valuable reps, and keep up their winning ways. They'll look for win number 6 on the season. Well, John Ruane loves talking when he goes against the Gateway Gators, right? His alma mater. He's asked that question every single year because PT and Gateway is always a big matchup. This one takes place in Monroeville on Friday. And, Gateway is a team that struggled earlier this season, Flick. They just barely got past Plum, the team that PT kind of just handled. But it's all, I think it'll depend on the quarterback play for Gateway. We mentioned Elvis, the freshman, has looked very good. They've had El Sidro Bryant play quite a bit. I think if they get good quarterback play, they still will be a very good team. But if you're the Warriors, I think this is a game, even though you go on the road and it's not necessarily easy to win in Monroeville, a game that I think they ultimately are going to have to win to get to their goals of being in the postseason.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, maybe Penn Trafford can pull a page from Franklin Regional's book and see what they did winning in the Swamp, which is never an easy thing to do at Anna Marino Stadium. So it should be a great game. Every time Penn Trafford and Gateway hook up, it's a rivalry. I guess it's, it's not necessarily a geographical rivalry, although they're not very far away, from one another. You see PT and Franklin, become a rivalry, and maybe even PT Latrobe and obviously PT Norwin. But, this has become, because of how great both programs are. They meet in the playoffs, WPIAL championship games. This is one you circle every single year. And as you mentioned, it becomes really, really important considering, Penn Trafford's lost to Woodland Hills in the conference.
Certainly a lot of eyes will be on that one in Class 5A Big East play. Also in the 5A Big East Conference, Kiski area at Greater Latrobe. Cavaliers just 1 win. The Wildcats are 4-2. Again, we don't know for sure, but it's trending towards maybe Alex Tash not being available once again. That should certainly complicate matters for Coach Ron Prady. Chartiers Valley at Bell Vernon area at the beach. The Leopards look for their first conference win. Remember to just have 1 win overall this season. Yonk looking to bounce back from heartbreak against Southmoreland. The Scotties at home, they are 5-1. on the season. Well, this is always highly anticipated as well. Two teams that are struggling this year, but it means a little more when it is Borough and Valley. It's the battle of the bypass. The winner, the winning community gets to use the bypass for the next year, and the losers have to go the long route and spend extra gas mileage, things of that nature. Anyway, Buccaneers 1-5, Vikings 0-6. That one will be played in New Kensington. Monessen 5-1 at Chartiers Houston. Ligonier Valley at Charleroi. The Rams looking for their third win of the campaign. And Saturday, Flick, we have a couple of Westmoreland County College games. Seton Hill makes the trek up to Erie to play Gannon. The Griffins are looking for their third consecutive win. They are 2-2. Gannon 0-4. That's a 1 o'clock kickoff on Saturday, as is St. Vincent hosting Geneva. Those teams each 1-3 on the season. There's a lot that jumps out to me. What do you really have a focus on for this Friday night?
Oh, man. Hempfield homecoming. We're going to be there. That should be fun. I hope Tristan Tavares plays. I really do. I love watching the kid play. His dad's a big supporter, by the way, of the Westmoreland Sports Network, Westmoreland on the Gridiron show that everyone's watching right now. I still kind of on, cloud nine from over the weekend with, being featured on ESPN and Jarrett Garn with his incredible catch. So we'll see if
do you think he can do it again?
That's what I'm going to say. I mean,
weeks?
He's playing it off it. We're going to be there. I mean, he has to do it again, right? Now, if he was on 2 straight weeks, that's rivaling Seton Hill baseball right there with their 3 straight years of a top 10 play. So, no, there's a lot of...
If he's on 2 straight weeks, he should be getting Division I offers. That should happen. By the way, the craziest thing was he made that catch. Did you see what he did seconds later? Lined up and kicked the extra point.
And he kicked the extra point. That's right. I should have mentioned that when I submitted it to SportsCenter. They may have included that as well. But no, a lot of intriguing matchups this week. We'll see how healthy Derry is too. Taking on Elizabeth Forward, that'll certainly be a big challenge. PT Gateway is always fun to see, even though we won't have it this year. So a lot of good games there. And Sean, I just want to mention too, since you kind of give me a chance to just say whatever I want here.
Yep.
We broadcast yesterday Seton Hill women's volleyball, and their longtime head coach, 40 years, Rick Hall, won his 800th career game. That is a program that has been terrific, for all of his 4 decades of coaching at Seton Hill. So congratulations to him, his brother Bob, and the program. They're doing really, really well this year, 11-2. They just swept Slippery Rock. They took the defending champion Gannon down to the wire. They only lost, in the 5th set. So I would just want to kind of step away from football for just a second and congratulate Rick because, we've been covering their games at Seton Hill for over a decade. And, we've been there for PSAC championships and Atlantic regional tournaments and everything. So congratulations to Rick Hall.
By the way, he's a Greater Latrobe grad, right?
He is. So it ties in. Yeah.
And his brother coached at Derry area.
He did for a while. And I think Rick may have taught at Greensburg Central Catholic. He taught somewhere. I don't know. But he knows the area very well. It all
ties in. All Westmoreland County comes together some way, somehow. All right. Well, Flick, we mention this every week. Might as well mention it again. Not just Friday night broadcasts, right? Obviously, we want you tuning in on Fridays. And of course, you can go back and watch it on demand late Friday night, like sometimes we do, or Saturday, or anytime throughout the week. But also, we have great articles, great content, really 24/7, 365. And I know in particular, you put a lot of work into the scoreboard as well as getting everything out on social media. So what should people know about that?
Yeah, you can check out our website throughout the night, Friday nights, westmorelandsports.com. Our scoreboard has all of the latest scores updated as they happen. We try to do it anyway as best as we can, update as they happen, and also on Twitter as well. And our Recruiting Thursday this week is with Sophia Mazzoni. She's committed to Auburn. She is a high-class javelin thrower from Derry. She is very, very good. So you can check that out on our website coming up tomorrow.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron. I want to thank Nick Keefer of Hempfield area and Carson Heinle of Kiski area, our guest tonight. You know where to catch us again next week at 7 p.m. right here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. But for now, we'll sign off for Dan, Sean, saying thanks for tuning in to another episode of Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Good night.